Hey Gabbers, it's Luke Skywalker here, just calling in. I'm all down at St. Thomas, which is actually Sparta, at some racetracks. Happened to run into a fellow geeker who took his DeLorean and made it as accurate as he can so far. So, hey
how's
Ken.
it going, guys?
So, you've got here the DeLorean. We can see the lights moving behind you. We've got the flux capacitor going.
Fluxing. Status indicator array is flashing away.
And then you've got all your switches and whatnot. So you're telling me a while ago in the pit, the fact that you've been trying to recreate this as close as possible.
There's me and a group of 7 other guys. We're recreating these cars. I'm in Ontario. Some of the other guys are in California. I got a guy in Pennsylvania. Got another guy out in Florida and Colorado. And they're all doing these cars as close as we can. And it's become like a labor of love. You have to do it. You gotta love all 3 movies, like so hardcore.
Definitely.
That you can like track down these things down to the right nut and bolt for every single part that you put on here. It's fun. It's expensive, but it's fun.
It could add up, yeah. Like you were mentioning about the cover for the fuel intake.
Some of the parts, like 90% of this car is all like old vintage surplus aircraft parts. And tracking them down, you can find the real parts online, but you're paying like $1,200, $1,500. But you go to these surplus stores and you're lucky enough to find some of the parts. So, I mean, some of the stuff I got on the back engine there, I should have paid, $1,500, $1,200, but you go to the surplus stores and you literally trip over the part on the floor in front of you. It's like, $25, $30.
Oh, that's
One
awesome.
of the parts I got, it's supposed to be $1,500, was $300. So you get lucky, but it takes its time.
So what was the first part that you put on this?
Honestly, the first part is right here.
Really?
This little Y handle is what got the bug started, because this is actually the exact same switch they used in the movie. It doesn't come with this part here, but this little thing here is actually a battery brush from Pep Boys, and it's a 99-cent piece, but it's exactly the part from the movie that they used way back in '85. And as soon as I saw that I could get real parts for fairly cheap, I was like, all right, the bug has struck. Just kind of spawned from that handle to this.
Nice. So everybody knows the flux capacitor, obviously.
Yeah.
So at what point did you put that in the car?
The flux capacitor was like, I don't know, it was just one of the little additions that I picked up on the side. I mean, this one is close, but it's still not perfect. And I'm ashamed to put an inaccurate part on my car, but the fact that you got to drive a time machine around without a flux capacitor, you just can't do it.
Oh, right, it'd be silly.
So, but this one I put in, I don't know, I got this from the guy in Florida. He built it for me.
Okay.
And I don't know, that was probably like, right after I put the handle in, I had to put the flux capacitor, so it was pretty close. But to find the real thing, like even all these little doohickeys inside of here, they're pretty tough to come by now. And now there's a lot of fellow nerds like me going and building these cars, driving the price of these surplus parts through the roof. So it's costly, but I managed to get the real parts back home, and it's coming. It's going to be the real 100% correct flux capacitor soon. So.
Nice. And you're talking about the synthesizer back here.
This is the SID. This thing here, it's actually a self-contained unit that we built. It's getting its power from this little cable right down here, but it's all a self-contained motherboard that we designed. It's a 10-channel spectrum analyzer. So as you can see as I'm talking, it kind of bounces around here. And other parts are coming. I mean, this was one part that we built. And then the other famous part from the movie is, the time circuits that go here. This one tells you where you're going, this one tells you where you've been, this one tells you where you were. I ain't got it. All I got is a backup camera there. But the same guy who helped us design this SID is going to help us build these time circuits. So it's still a work in progress, but I mean, it's fun, and I'm enjoying every step along the way.
So you said you've had this car for 8 years.
8 years.
So how long have you been working on it, like modifying it?
Well, I started doing the modifications on my own probably 5 years ago. It looked like a Back to the Future car to the average person walking by. They'd be like, oh cool, look, Back to the Future car.
Right.
But once I started getting a little more hardcore with these other guys, it was kind of like, all right, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Start pulling stuff off and redoing it. And since that day 5 years ago, it's been 3 years of research and tearing parts off the car and replacing them with the real ones.
Yeah.
So it's quite a bit of research. It's like photo archaeology, if you will. Digging through old pictures of the DeLoreans and seeing what we think a part might be and then tracking it down.
So there's just a little race that went by, which is why we lost a little bit of the audio.
I was so nervous bringing this car here because I thought for sure I was going to be like, 20, 21 seconds on the track with this thing, but kicking their asses, man.
Nice.
I haven't been beating any of the muscle cars, but I've been getting like 17 seconds was my best time. So
and a little bit more added to the geek ride too. Your car number is 88.
Exactly. I had to do it. The guy's like, "What number you want to be?" I was like,
88, obviously.
Exactly.
So now, I've seen a couple of DeLoreans that do have a flux capacitor in, but what really puts your car separate from the other ones, if you want to get out and show us the back, is this baby back here.
Yeah, you get a lot of DeLoreans with the flux capacitors, and that's because everybody asks you, "Hey buddy, where's your flux capacitor?"
Exactly, it's a staple of the movie, but this is where you've really put like the work into it.
It's coming along. Like I said, I got some pictures from the real car from the movie, and it's kind of like I said, part photo archaeology to find the parts. So we're coming along.
So far, which part would you say was the hardest one to find?
The one that's not on the car.
Obviously.
The one part that I did find, it goes on top of this thing here. It's actually from a jet engine. It's a turbine stator, and it's just basically like a little nozzle kind of looking thing. And I finally found one. And some of the other guys building this car didn't have one, so I sent it off, and we're casting it to try and make some replicas for everybody else.
Okay.
We all kind of try to help each other out, you know?
Nice.
We'll find a part, and if the other guy doesn't have it, we'll make copies as best we can, you know? But so far, everything on this car, I've been able to get the real parts. There's no castings on this car yet,
So now, like for the intake valves you got back here.
Yeah, these vents, this is probably the hardest part to do. This is a lot of metal cutting, a lot of welding, a lot of headaches, that's for sure. A lot of cut fingers too.
I can imagine.
It's a little bit insane making those things, but once you get that on the car, there's no going back, you know? You got the vents on the car, and that pretty much sets it aside from another DeLorean.
Now you're racing with this car, and you've got all this on the back where the other ones don't, and you're still kicking their ass.
They just don't know how to drive. That's right. No, I'm just joking. No, everyone's having fun, but you got to be careful with this car because it's kind of like you don't want to push it because the DeLorean is as good as a car as it can be. It's temperamental, and I mean, if you push the car, the last thing you want to do is have something break on it because it's a monster to work on. So I don't blame those guys. I'm trying not to push this car either, but I mean, I know that when I'm out there, everyone's looking like, "Oh, hey, look, there's the Back to the Future car." I don't want to suck too hard.
Oh yeah, you gotta represent.
I gotta push it a little bit. You know?
Yeah.
But I got my ass handed to me by some of the other guys. Another one of the DeLorean owners here beat me, so it's all fair game. Those GTOs, that's also made by the same guy who made this car, John DeLorean. That car kicks some ass. So
yeah.
Technically, you can call the GTO a DeLorean as well, right? So that's where this one can redeem itself.
Yeah. And so you also mentioned your site about renting a time machine. Do you want to tell us about that?
You know what? Everywhere I go, people are asking about the time machine. So I started up timemachineforhire.com, which is but that's what timemachineforhire.com does. It kind of helps me fund some of these projects, finding some of these rare parts and keeping the car running and everything like that. I get to fund some of the project with doing some of these things. We've done stuff with Wrigley's, with Trias College. You get to do some cool stuff with the Back to the Future car. People like it, you know?
Oh yeah.
And one of the coolest events I got to do was at the Royal York Hotel downtown Toronto. They had an event there for a sales meeting. It was all Back to the Future themed, and they wanted to have the time machine on the sales floor. So I said, all right, cool, I'll bring it to the Royal York. And little did I know, I brought it around to the back to a freight elevator, drove my DeLorean into an elevator, and it took me up to the 3rd floor. And I'm driving through the hallways of the Royal York, which is pretty
nice.
Pretty badass.
That is badass.
It's pretty cool. So it makes some fun. It has some fun stories.
So it's got some perks, obviously.
It's got some perks, yeah. I got some of my boys racing now. I got to check them out.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice talking to you, sir.
So yeah, Gavers, if you ever need to rent a time machine, give Ken a call. So until next time, this is Luke signing out.